Good afternoon. It is afternoon. It's just 12:04. Thank you everyone for being here. Let me first start off by acknowledging that we are on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. Prime Minister, welcome back to Mississauga. In fact, this is your second or third time at this facility itself, so it's really good to have you here. I am joined by my caucus colleagues, Quinder Gahir, Sven Spengeman, Richie Valdez, and Peter Fonseca, along as with Minister Chan, Mayor Crombie, sorry, Stan, Minister Cho, Mayor Crombie, and many of my provincial colleagues and city council. Thank you all for being here. Prime Minister, as you know, Mississauga is the 6th largest city in Canada and continues to grow and prosper. I want to give a shout out to the workers of My Way and Transit Mississauga for their hard work during the COVID pandemic. They continue to serve the people of Mississauga during challenging times and stay healthy and stay safe. We're all grateful to their work. Today's announcement is yet another evidence of our federal government strong partnership with the city of Mississauga to ensure that not only the city of Mississauga has the tools it needs to deal with and to manage its growth, but also to fight climate change, to create convenience for travelers, and to build and connect our cities with each other and create an opportunity for more jobs and economic growth. So with this, Prime Minister, it's really good to have you here. I'm looking forward to the announcement, and later on we'll take questions from the media. Prime Minister.
Thank you, Omar. It is always so good to be back here in Mississauga. Glad to be, as Omar pointed out, joined by our great team here in Mississauga, Peter, Sven, Richie, and Iquinder. But speaking of great teams and strong voices for Mississauga, such a pleasure to be back here with you, Mayor Crombie. Bonnie, you've been such an extraordinary leader and advocate for Mississauga in general, but specifically for transit. So the announcement we're making today is outstanding. And Stan, Minister Cho, great to have you here with us. One of the things we've seen through this pandemic is that it is such a good sign for all citizens when you have 3 orders of government working seamlessly together on delivering for their citizens. And anytime I can stand here with friends from the municipal level and the provincial level, as well as us from the federal level, we know it's a good day. And this is a good announcement we're about to make. But before I get into that, I do want to say a few words on the situation in Ukraine. Yesterday evening, I spoke once again to President Zelensky and shared with him my deep concerns for the dangers of Russian attacks on Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Obviously, we need to see great care taken and a de-escalation of violence in general in Ukraine, but specifically around nuclear power plants. That would be a compounding level to this crisis and problem that nobody wants to see, and we certainly hope that will be the case moving forward. Le Canada continue de soutenir le peuple ukrainien. On a déjà envoyé des cargaisons d'équipements militaires, incluant de l'armement, avec d'autres cargaisons en route. On accueille aussi des Ukrainiens ici au Canada. Depuis le début de l'année, on en a accueilli des milliers. But we've also announced special immigration measures that are going to allow Ukrainians fleeing Ukraine or trying to come to Canada either permanently or for a little while till the situation calms down to be able to get here quickly, to be supported by the incredibly strong Ukrainian community here in Canada, but indeed by all Canadians. The coordinated economic sanctions are working. Russia is reeling from the strong and aligned measures that democracies around the world have engaged in. We see the ruble falling to record lows. We see the 3 major credit agencies significantly downgrading Russia's economic status. And we just see an extraordinary cost associated with this wrong-headed decision, this terrible mistake by Putin to violate the sovereignty and territorial integrity of a neighboring country. The West is united in making sure this is extremely costly for Russia. And quite frankly, I think we are all inspired by how strongly Ukrainians are standing to defend their lands, although all of us who in Canada know how strong and courageous Ukrainians are not surprised by the approach and attitude that everyone has. Next week, I'll be traveling to the United Kingdom, to Latvia, to Germany and Poland to meet with partners and allies. We'll of course be discussing how to continue to support Ukraine, how to strengthen democratic values around the world, and how to stand up even more for democracy, to stand against Russian aggression, and to work very hard on combating the kind of disinformation and misinformation that we know is a facet of day-to-day life these days, but a particularly strong facet of this conflict, this war in Ukraine. We're also going to be obviously talking with our allies in Europe about economic recovery, about fighting climate change, about being there to create inclusive growth for people, which segues nicely into this announcement we're making today. Great pleasure to be back here in this center in Mississauga to talk about transit once again, because we know how important transit is to Canadians, but particularly people living in the GTA. It's about quality of life. It's about spending less time on the road, stuck in traffic, more time doing the things you love, being with your family, going to soccer games, not wasting time in transit. And it's about cleaner air and a better future for our kids. That's why, since 2015, we've been huge believers and partners in massive transit investments across the country. And that's what we're going to continue to do. We've worked for many years now extremely closely with leaders in Mississauga, particularly with Mayor Crombie. And this morning, I'm very pleased that we have more great news to share. Our government will be investing over $271 million for transit in Mississauga, which will mean 358 new hybrid buses to replace old diesel vehicles, which is less pollution and a better ride for thousands upon thousands of people. It'll be faster bus routes, including a new rapid route on Dundas Street, so buses don't get stuck in traffic. And of course, as we engage in these construction and new projects, this will create good middle-class jobs across the region. But this will also mean real results for real people, like Yumna, who's a student, who's going to be able to get faster and easier to school or to Square One. Or parents like Stephanie, who's raising her family here, wanting cleaner air and a brighter future for her two kids. Depuis 2015, nos investissements historiques dans le transport collectif partout au pays font une vraie différence dans la vie des gens. On reste concentré sur les priorités des Canadiens, des emplois pour la classe moyenne, un environnement propre et une économie forte. Merci de votre attention. Je suis très heureux maintenant de céder la parole au ministre Cho. Stan, up to you.
Well, thank you very much, Prime Minister. Good afternoon, everybody. It is really great to be here. Thank you, Minister Alghabra. Nice to see you again. And Mayor Crombie, twice in 1 week to make a good news announcement in Mississauga. This is fantastic. Also want to acknowledge our amazing MPPs in Mississauga, Minister Rashid, Minister Tangri, MPP Kusindova, and present with us today, MPP Anand, MPP Cuzetto, and MPP Sabawe. Thank you so much for being here for what is a very good news announcement in Mississauga. I'm so excited to announce this. My wife is from Mississauga. My in-laws still live here. But it's time to invest further into transit. Everyone knows we've got a growing population. The secret's out. This is the best country to live in the world, the best province right here. We've got a ton of people coming. 15 million today is the population of Ontario. 15 million people will be the population of just the Greater Golden Horseshoe alone in less than 30 years. And that means the time to invest in transit is now. And the province is proud to contribute $225 million to doing a few things here. Reducing commute times, increasing the time you get to spend with your family, lessening the time you're sitting in traffic or on a bus. We're also making sure that we go greener. 358 My Way buses will be off diesel. This is fantastic news, and we're also making sure that commuter wait times are reduced. You know, earlier this week, we also announced that we're making riding transit in Mississauga more affordable. We announced recently that if you take GO and My Way, well, you're only going to pay one fare, and that is the case among most of the local transit agencies. Anytime you take GO Transit, we've doubled the youth fare discount for those aged 13 to 19, and we've made riding more affordable for post-secondary students as well. Regardless of where you are enrolled, you will have that same discount applied. We are so excited to be investing into transit. It is a historic investment. The province, as I said, $225 million, but the total project here, the announcement we are making, is $675 million for the great city of Mississauga. And I know it's the 6th largest now in Canada, but we know that is only the tip of the iceberg. People are moving here in droves, and that means we're investing in transit. We're continuing to connect the grid and making the transit rider experience better for everybody today and for generations to come. I want to thank you all for being here today for this exciting announcement, and with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mayor Crombie.
Bonjour tout le monde. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Prime Minister, always a delight to see you. And let me say, as a Canadian of Polish and Ukrainian heritage, how proud I am of you and the sanctions, the measures that you have imposed, as has the free world. So thank you, Prime Minister. So this is another very big day for Mississauga, and I can barely contain my elation and excitement. It's big for our residents, for our future, and I think my councillors will agree. I want to thank Councillor Stephen Dasco from Ward 1 for joining us today, and Councillor Chris Fonseca from Ward 3, who is also with us today, in addition to, of course, our Prime Minister. Minister Alghabra, who continues to deliver for Mississauga. Minister Alghabra, I truly want to thank you as well. And Minister Cho, as he's told you, this is the second announcement we've made together this week. Prior on Monday, we announced a fare integration to make it more affordable for people to travel on the GO train and then transfer to My Way. And we do have many of our wonderful My Way drivers here, ATU drivers. Thank you for the incredible work that you have done throughout the pandemic, stepping up. You are essential workers, and we are proud of you, and you went above and beyond. So thank you to all our My Way employees as well. So to both levels of government, you've truly been incredible partners. Thank you for your commitment to helping us strengthen public transit here in Mississauga. Big things happen when three orders of government work so closely together that we unite to create a vision and strong and healthy communities. These investments are important to Mississauga for more reasons than one: making transit more reliable, effective, efficient, will encourage more people to get out of their cars and help us collectively reach our climate change targets. As will investments in cleaner technology, like the more than 350 second-generation hybrid buses the city will now be able to purchase with this funding. We also know that building better transit, and particularly expanding our transit map, means commuters can move across our city and beyond with greater ease, and makes a real and measurable difference in their day-to-day lives. So I'm grateful that we are now going to be able to build the first 7-kilometer Mississauga East stretch of our Dundas BRT, something our council has been advocating for years. I can see Councillor Fonseca clapping and cheering right already. So dedicated bus lanes along Dundas Street will create another quick east-west connection and ease across our city. It'll reduce congestion, shorten commuter times, and give people back precious time in their day they can spend with their family and their friends, or just doing the things that they love. It'll aid in our economic recovery from this pandemic and create, as the Prime Minister said, very good local high-paying jobs. The Dundas BRT will simply make it much easier for people to travel to and from Mississauga. And once complete, someone who lives in Scarborough can take the subway to Kipling Station, connect to the Dundas BRT, and seamlessly move across our city all the way to the University of Toronto's Mississauga campus. It allows people to explore new job opportunities because it's simply faster and easier to get from one part of the GTA to another. And it connects more employers to workers and connects businesses to more customers. And what really excites me is that the Dundas BRT will directly connect another transformative project underway in our city, the Hurontario LRT, now officially to be called the Hazel-McCallion line, which stretches all the way from Port Credit in Mississauga to the Brampton border. And I hope that one day, not too far off in the future, the BRT will fully connect from the eastern Mississauga to the west end of our city at UTM, and eventually all the way to Hamilton. This is the kind of regionally integrated transit connections that we need in order to secure our future as a competitive and world-class city. I know that we can get this done, and I look forward to those shovels in the ground come 2024. We are truly very fortunate to have two partners who are equally committed to building regionally integrated transit across the GTHA that's clean, that's efficient, and that seamlessly connects people to the places that they need to go. So once again, my sincerest thanks to both the Prime Minister, Minister Alghabra, and Associate Minister Stan Cho, the local MPs, our local MPPs, for their commitment and dedication to our city and our future. Thank you, everyone. And now I pass it back to Minister Alghabra.
Thank you very much, Mayor Crombie. Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Minister Cho. Thank you, everyone, for being here. This is a great day for the people of Mississauga, where all levels of government are working together to deliver for our people. And now I think we'll take time for question and answer.
Thank you, Minister. We have 20 minutes for questions. Please limit to one question, one follow-up, and identify your media outlet and name. We will start with the first question.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Kelly Botello, CHCH News. What is the goal for your trip to Europe this weekend? What's on the table?
I think one of the things that we've seen that has been incredibly strong in the response to the Russian aggression, continued Russian aggression in Ukraine, has been not just the resilience of the Ukrainian people and their courage, but the strong, seamless, coordinated response by all of our allies. Over the past weeks, we have been working together and coordinating together, and the opportunity to sit down with key leaders in Europe and talk about how we further support Ukraine, how we further push back against Russia, and how we tackle the idea that we need to defend democracies better against the kind of misinformation and disinformation that has been part of this war in Ukraine since well before it ever started. At the same time as, of course, we're going to be talking about the things that we're working on together, whether it's economic recovery, inclusive economic growth, or the fight against climate change. Lots to do this week with allies in Europe, and I'm looking forward to it. Je pense qu'on a vu que la coordination entre les différents pays, les démocraties de l'Occident, en matière de sanctions et de pénalités pour la Russie, pour Poutine, a été extraordinaire. La semaine prochaine, je vais pouvoir continuer cette coordination directement avec nos alliés. On va pouvoir aussi parler évidemment de la lutte contre les changements climatiques, de la croissance inclusive et du travail que nous devons tous faire pour en finir avec cette pandémie et relancer nos économies comme il faut.
Next question.
Your government announced that Canada is willing to accept an unlimited number of Ukrainian refugees. Is Canada expecting an influx of refugees soon, and where will those who don't have family here go?
We know that Canada and Canadians have always been there for people fleeing conflict and war. That's part of what has built this country over many, many generations, whether it was stepping up for Syrian refugees, whether it's being there for people fleeing Afghanistan, or in the coming weeks and months, people fleeing the conflict in Ukraine. Yes, many Ukrainian Canadians are opening their homes and their communities to support people coming here, but also non-Ukrainian Canadians are stepping up in communities across the country, because that's just what Canadians do. We've heard very clearly from many Ukrainians that they looking forward to coming to Canada and being safe for a while, but they are also committed to returning to Ukraine and creating closer ties between Canada and Ukraine as we eventually get to the work of rebuilding Ukraine is going to be important. But for now, we're doing everything we can to support people in this moment.
Prochaine question.
Hi, Heather Wright, CTV News. Yesterday, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly told the Toronto Star that Putin's irrationality means a no-fly zone over Ukraine is too risky. Does that mean Canada is not willing to help institute a no-fly zone over Ukraine because you're worried that Putin might use nuclear weapons?
We are and have been extremely focused on standing up for Ukraine and giving Ukrainians the support they need to get through this. The biggest and strongest response we've had is actually in crippling the Russian economy, demonstrating to all Russians that Vladimir Putin made a terrible mistake. Yes, Putin has chosen to use violence and military might to try and achieve his ends. He will fail at that, but we are responding with economic tools that will be far more impactful on the world than Putin's army can be. The thing that we have so far avoided and will continue to need to avoid is putting a situation in which NATO forces are in direct conflict with Russian soldiers. That would be a level of escalation that is unfortunate, that we need to avoid, but we will continue to impose punishing consequences on Putin, on his cronies in the Kremlin, and on the Russian people until they understand just how terrible a mistake Vladimir Putin has just made.
Follow-up?
The Ukrainian government, though, has been asking for things like fighter jets to help them fight the Russians. Is Canada willing to send fighter jets to Ukraine?
The Ukrainian military is trained up on Soviet-style MiGs and fighter jets that Canada simply does not have.
Next question.
Hi, Nicole Thompson, the Canadian Press. On the issue of zero-emission vehicles and the Canada-US relationship, should Canada's auto sector take any comfort in the fact that President Biden's State of the Union did not put a protectionist Buy American frame around his plans to encourage Americans to buy more electric vehicles?
I think we've been very clear that we need to invest more in electrification of our economies and specifically of our transport. That's why part of this announcement is for hybrid buses that can be converted to full electric in due course. We know that that's a key part of moving forward. We also have demonstrated with significant investments in by automakers here in Canada that we are an important partner in creating zero-emission vehicles. We're obviously pleased that the protectionist approach that the United States had proposed is not going forward, but we're going to continue to work with our American friends and partners to make sure that we are building electric cars together and creating opportunities for both cleaner air and growing economies and jobs into the future.
The White House today is detailing their plans and strategies for President Biden's more aggressive Buy American approach to federal procurement, including a 75% domestic content threshold by 2029. Does the exemption agreement that we reached in 2010 still apply, or will it have to be renegotiated? And if so, do you expect it to be more difficult now than it was 12 years ago?
From the very beginning, we have been very clear in the level of which our economies are integrated, our people work together and prosper together. That was the crux of the argument against the previous extremely protectionist administration, in which we successfully renegotiated NAFTA in a way that is extraordinarily beneficial to Canada. We saw even as recently as the occupations and blockades that shut down the Ambassador Bridge, Americans suddenly realized that, oh my gosh, we are extremely integrated. like we've always been saying, because shutdowns on the Canadian side had a direct and immediate impact on the American economy. So they know we are integrated, and that just gives further arguments to demonstrate that we are going to continue to work together, and will continue to make sure that they understand that protectionist policies against Canada end up hurting American jobs and American workers just as much.
Next question.
Khalid Salama, My Second Home TV and Canadian News. Prime Minister, right here in Canada and right here in Ontario, we have the best automotive manufacturing facilities. And yet, we can't have our own brand of e-cars. Why we are lagging behind, and why not the government do something for this with the proper incentives also for the average person?
One of the things that we have demonstrated is a deep commitment to electric vehicles. We're talking about a goal of 50% of all new car sales by 2030 will be zero-emission vehicles, and 100% of all new car sales in 2035 will be zero-emission vehicles. In order to get there, we're going to be standing up significant investments to create more and more electric vehicles, zero-emission vehicles that Canadians can purchase. There are many companies doing that. I'm always encouraging Canadians to look at how we can create more solutions. We are also investing in critical minerals paths to create batteries from the nickel, cobalt, and lithium we have here in Canada as well. That's an important part of Made in Canada solutions. But as I said in the answer to the previous question, we've been building cars together with the United States for over 50 years now. We're going to keep working together with our closest partners to make sure that we're getting the best possible products for Canadians at the best possible prices as we work to clean our air and grow our economies.
Prime Minister, when was the last time you paid for your own gas on the pump, and what do you think about the current gas prices, and how can you protect us from this gouging right now?
I think we're all concerned about the global instability that the war in Ukraine has created. Coming on an inflation crisis that's been compounded by the path out of COVID. We have been there for Canadians. We made a straightforward promise to Canadians from the very beginning of this pandemic crisis that we would have people's backs. And that's exactly what we've been doing, either with this announcement that's going to make it easier to get from home to work here in Mississauga, whether it's the investments in childcare that are making a huge difference across the country, and we're very hopeful about seeing childcare costs for families here in Ontario decrease in the coming months if we move forward on that agreement. We've stepped up for seniors. We've stepped up for young people. We will continue to be there to have people's backs, even as we struggle with a global inflation crisis because of COVID that is putting extra costs on families. We'll continue to be there for Canadians.
Last question.
Lorenda Redicott with CBC News, and I'm looking for a response in both English and also French. You mentioned the nuclear threat off the top. How worried are you right now about the possibility of a nuclear war, and what are you doing to get ready for that possibility?
Canada obviously made a choice many decades ago to not develop nuclear weapons, and I think that's something that Canadians are rightly proud of. But at the same time, alongside our NATO partners, we take very seriously, and have always taken, the responsibility to move towards nuclear disarmament, and indeed to keep all people on this planet safe from the threat of nuclear war. We condemn wholeheartedly the musings of the Russians about nuclear as potential options. We know that we need to solve this together. We need to end the fighting in Ukraine. We need to restore territorial integrity and sovereignty. And the way we are doing that is by demonstrating that Vladimir Putin made a terrible mistake in choosing to overturn decades of peace and stability, of respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty, principles that bind all nations together through the United Nations. Nous sommes évidemment très préoccupés par les menaces de Vladimir Poutine, mais je peux rappeler aux gens que le Canada a toujours été là pour encourager les gens à se désarmer, à éviter évidemment la guerre nucléaire. Nous allons continuer d'être là pour démontrer que Poutine a fait une erreur fondamentale en voulant violer l'intégrité territoriale de l'Ukraine. Et nous allons continuer de travailler pour la paix et la stabilité en Europe et partout dans le monde.
Will the conflict in Ukraine prompt you to boost the defense spending to NATO like we've seen from other countries?
Canada has always been a strong contributor to NATO, whether it's leading the battle group in Latvia, whether it's our presence elsewhere around the world. Canada has always stepped up in every NATO mission, and we will continue to. At the same time, we're making significant investments in NORAD and protecting the North American strategic defense. We will continue to be strong partners to NATO and to the world in keeping people safe and creating opportunities for all.
Thank you.
Nous avons toujours été un membre très fort de l'OTAN. Nous avons toujours été là dans les différentes missions. On est en train de mener le groupe en Lettonie pour tenir la côte est de l'Europe. Nous allons toujours être là pour l'Europe et pour l'OTAN, et nous allons continuer de faire des investissements. Il y a quelques années, on a annoncé des augmentations de 70% à nos dépenses militaires pour s'assurer que nos soldats et nos troupes aient les équipements dont ils ont besoin. On va continuer de faire les investissements nécessaires.
Merci. Ça met fin à la conférence de presse. Thank you. That ends today's press conference.
Merci tout le monde.